Welcome to Alchemical Science. I'm Jordan, an open source researcher and a student of the inventor and vortex fusion specialist Malcolm Bendel. So a couple of weeks ago, Roger Green of Breakthrough Technologies put on a community thunderstorm generator event in Mullumbimby, New South Wales, Australia. Around 140 people came together for the event. We discussed the thunderstorm generator and the principles behind it, and many inventors and independent researchers were in attendance. Unfortunately, we did not have a working machine ready for the event to demonstrate on the night. Through various acts of God and frustration, the engine in Melbourne that was supposed to be used for the event had lost compression, likely a blown head gasket. There was a lot of chaos on that build. I wasn't too involved in that. And then Nick and I were tasked with putting together another retrofit 2 days before the event, so we would have one working. And this included finding an artisan welder available on a public holiday on Australia Day, which took up most of the first day. So anyway, excuses aside, we did not succeed in finishing the emergency build before the event. We jammed it all together in the last hour, tried to run it, fuel leaked out of the carburetor, and we just gave up. And we turned up to the event with no working engine, a little late. Despite this, it was a really fantastic evening. Two local guys ended up turning up with their own independently built thunderstorm generator, which ran really well. Unfortunately, we didn't bring the gas analyzer because we didn't think we had a working engine there. But then the next day we had a crew of mechanics and helpers from the event turn up and help us finish our engine, which we'd started on the day before, and we got it running successfully. So now I'm also back up in Lismore, New South Wales, and we'll be repeating the demo on this Tuesday, the 11th of February at 7 p.m. again. So it's a public demo, anyone is welcome. If you'd like to come back and see the TSG in action, please join us on Tuesday at the Lismore Masonic Temple. And thank you to the Lismore Masonic Lodge for offering us this space for the demo. No registration is necessary, you just need to turn up. We should have 3 working thunderstorm generator retrofits and an unaltered control engine of the same model to show baseline results in comparison this time. And the mechanics that help with these new builds and the independent replicators from last time, they'll be there as well as myself. So if you're conducting your own build, there'll be plenty of people to discuss it with who've been working on thunderstorm generators for the last couple of weeks, full on. But if you can't make it along this time, in this video I give an overview of the system, which was recorded at the event last time in Lismore. And tomorrow we'll follow up with the video of the trial that we conducted in Ballina after the event, when we got it working afterwards. We also have several people attending the event on Tuesday to film again, so I'll share those trials afterwards too. Anyway, I hope you can join us. I apologise that we didn't have a working unit ready last time. I know some people travelled a fair way to get there, and it was very disappointing for me too. I hope that this overview of the thunderstorm generator is helpful in the meantime, and stay tuned for the follow-up video tomorrow of the trials that we did after the event. And there's a bit of a surprise result in there too, which was very interesting, but I'll leave that for the next video.
So we've had a really crazy week this week. We did have a working unit at some point in Melbourne, and then there was an engine problem with that. That was the build that Oliver and Steve were doing down there. I wasn't supposed to be involved in this build. I was just coming here to speak, but Malcolm called me up about 5 days ago and said, go down to Melbourne, they haven't got it working. That engine, there was a major problem. There was too much fuel coming in. We had no time to fix it. So our friend here, Nick, bought this new engine, and we tried to do a retrofit in the last 2 days. And we literally just finished putting this pipe on and bending it maybe an hour ago, putting this one on. And then we tried to run the engine just before we left, and we realized that we've got this gunk has just got into the carburetor here. And so we're just getting fuel pissing out, and we don't have time to pull it off or reseal it. And that's unfortunately what we get with a 2-day build. Alrighty. So all that being said, let's go through how the unit runs. This is the first, well actually, first we explain really what the thunderstorm generator is in any... Go for it. Okay. Go for it, mate. So essentially this is it's a waste energy harvesting system. Can we have everyone just quiet in the back? It's a waste energy harvesting system. So we're not creating free energy here. We're using energy that already exists. Malcolm always says if you fill up your tank with a tank of fuel, you're getting about 33% of your dollar in the fuel. The rest is going to waste. It's going to heat, loss, exhaust waste. What this does is captures that, all of it, harnesses it, and utilizes it as viable fuel. So there's an increase in fuel efficiency. The official one that's been released is around 20% increase in fuel efficiency, which is quite large, but there have been experimental figures that are a bit higher than that, but I don't want to say them. Let's stick with 20. It's already amazing. So what we're doing here is fitting these spheres. Can't see them on this side. This is called the Thunderstorm generator itself, or the Vajra, which is named after the thunderbolt weapon of Lord Indra and also Zeus and a number of others. Thor's related to it. Pretty much every lightning god or demigod of the past has been related to this device here. This is fit to the engine. That's where the magic happens. This is the first unit. So we've got 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 parts of the system. The first unit is the Ionizer, and there's a little bit of contention around whether it ionizes because it's not a powerful enough UV globe to actually do that to the oxygen, but it is for the argon, the 1% of argon in the air. But otherwise, we're actually just Malcolm's not working on normal principles. So this is about frequency. We're essentially preconditioning our air, preconditioning it to try and create viable cavitation in the next step. So this is what we call the plasmoid generator, or the bubbler. This essentially replaces the air intake of the engine. So just to quickly kind of run down the flow before I explain each part individually. Air's pulled in here, it comes through here, and it bubbles up through the water that's in here. We're creating bubbles in here, and I'll go through that in a minute, but then that is pulled through into this bottom sphere, where it goes clockwise spin up here, comes around, and then down into this spacer, which is the part we've messed up, unfortunately, this time, in between the carburetor and the air intake.
Is that the inner cavity?
Which bit?
Where the air comes in, is that the inner cavity in there?
It is, yeah. So I'll go through that part in more detail in a minute. I just wanted to kind of give you some basic flow idea.
You missed what? That's the bottom sphere. What's that one? The top sphere?
Yeah. So
What's it do?
I'll go to this unit, and then I just wanted to kind of show you the flow of the whole thing, and then we'll go through. So essentially, what this is doing is utilizing the existing strokes of the engine to create vacuum. So we get this, we're utilizing the existing vacuum strokes of the engine to pull all the way through here, up through there, and into there. And there's a little venturi in there that's facing this way. And we got even amounts to the side. We create a vacuum in there, pulls right through the system. But the second part, the plasmoid generator or the bubbler, essentially what we're doing, so with the vacuum stroke.
It's an argon filter, right? That's argon filter. It's a simple argon filter.
It's not a filter. It's a. I'll just quickly show you. Yeah.
Simple light. Yeah.
It's simply a light globe. So this is just preconditioning. It's going to ionize the argon, but it's also affecting the air in a way.
Is that ultraviolet or not?
Yeah. This is like a reptile globe. There's actually the wavelength is actually on my channel on the build guide from.
Use a tropical UV. You can get them from Petland.
Yeah, you can get them from a pet shop. Yep, exactly. The box is actually around somewhere, so we can show that later if anyone wants to take a photo. But it is up on my channel. If anyone wants to see it, I can provide the link. So we're pulling through here. We fill this up with water, just like a little wave, and then it's got like a porous air stone like you use in a fish tank. That's just micronizing bubbles, bringing them up there. This is stuff with just steel wool scrubbies and a what's the other kind of scrubby? The green one. It's a bunch of dishwashing equipment.
It's great science when you just use a reptile light.
Reptile light,
steel wool.
and there are more advanced models of this being built, but it's great, to demonstrate the principle. Simply, this is what it is. So we pull up here. It actually will create back pressure when we're on the other stroke of the on the other side of the stroke of the engine. So when the pistons go up, we'll create back pressure in the system because this is all pressurized up to the water here. So we're creating micronized bubbles. Ideally, to be in the viable range for cavitation, they need to be around 1 micron in size. But ideally, we're actually just looking for a really wide spectrum of sizes so that we are more likely to get a lot of bubbles in the viable range for cavitation. So water bubble cavitation, if you don't know, this is how we produce a plasmoid or ball lightning, or what else have they been called over the years? Many, many different things. EVOs, exotic vacuum objects. Yep. A lot of different things.
What's that? The toroidal moment?
The fractal toroidal moment's slightly different, but yeah, it's what they do.
Similar, yeah,
that's the
similar
geometry
sort of,
that we see, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but there has literally been 100 different researchers that have come up with 100 different names because people keep independently discovering this.
Yeah.
For a long time, it was suppressed by the Navy. So if you think of Hal Puthoff, Ken Shoulders, they did a lot of this research, and that's documented. Bob Greenyer released a lot of Ken Shoulders' work, and you can go and find that online. That was showing this stuff. There is, again, a lot of different information you can look up, and I can give everyone a big list of references if you'd like it. That's also available on my channel. We're bringing it up. What we want to do is symmetrically implode the bubbles. That's why we want them small. If we've got a really large bubble, it's just going to pop. If we can symmetrically implode a bubble, we create this, the infinity sign, the toroid in 3D. That essentially creates a gravity well, and this is where this does not align with physics that is taught in most universities outside Russia and a few other countries who actually have institutes developed to study this stuff. We're bringing the bubbles up, we're popping them, we're creating a plasmoid. You get a self-contained electromagnetic field. It's structured plasma. It's just plasma, but it's structured plasma. If anyone's into kind of UFO phenomena or seeing, lights in the sky, these little balls of light that are absolutely evidential, absolutely everywhere, it's the same thing. These are much larger versions of what we're using here, but often they're created in air. We're creating them in water, which essentially gives them a sheath, and there's no nuclear byproducts produced or anything like that, even though it's a reaction that's occurring at millions of degrees. It's essentially, if you've seen the star in the jar experiment, this is exactly what this is. So,
Would it be fair to say that a Foo Fighter is a plasmoid?
what was that, sorry?
Would it be fair to say that a Foo Fighter is a plasmoid?
I haven't heard that term. What's a Foo Fighter?
Like the orbs?
Yeah, the orbs, yeah.
You're getting seen at the moment.
These
but I've
these
seen, like,
balls that move around, and essentially
form of plasmoid, hey? Like,
they are, yeah, they're just a much larger form. Like the difference with these and why Malcolm calls them MSART plasmoids or Shamir plasmoids is because they're generated in water. And the air ones can get a little dangerous and crazy, to be honest. So this is safer. So we're trying to create cavitation, we're trying to create plasmoids. They're the little beings that do the work. They're essentially, like, you can imagine them as little plasma bees, essentially. Like, if you think of a beehive and how they work, the bees want to keep the whole hive in homeostasis. So they'll, if the hive's overheating, one of the bees will fly to the front, it'll flap its wings. Not one, many of the bees will fly to the front of the hive. They'll flap its wings, cool down the hive. That's what plasmoids do, and how they're everywhere, frankly. In this world, they keep all systems in homeostasis, whether it's charge or whether it's heat or whether it's, all of these things are ultimately unified. They're the same, or they're different expressions of the same things, expansion, contraction. Look at Walter Russell's work if you're interested in that. So then we're vacuuming the plasmoids along with the water vapor, the water gases, water in its gas phase, and the hydrogen that is split apart by the plasmoids. So plasmoids, they're the part that does the transmutation in the system. You've got...
So they're actually in the air intake. They're feeding into the air intake.
No, they're not there. We're creating them in this part of the system. Yeah. So we're actually creating. They're all to do with the bubbles. We form the bubble. We pop the bubble. We pop it symmetrically. Yeah. And then we form them in this part of the system. So they'll be like, we'll suck them up here into the top of the chamber, collapse into that, and we got plasmoids. The plasmoids can grow, I think it's from 1 micron to around 10 microns in size, just from feeding off the water vapor. This they can split apart into hydrogen and oxygen. And then all of this with water vapor, water in its gas phase, makes up our cold stream, which is going into the bottom input of the sphere here. So then we've got this, I'll hold this up, it's easier.
Is the copper critical?
The copper,
line?
yeah, the copper is actually quite critical because the essentially it repels plasmoids, so electrical phenomena. Yeah, if you cannot use like stainless steel or iron. We've tried it, but it reduces efficiency significantly. Yeah, they'll actually discharge into it.
Yep.
Just yeah, and that's essentially, you know, they're just structured electricity in a way. You know, Bob calls them static electricity. That's another name for plasmoids for him.
Bob who?
Bob Green.
Green, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
Martin
you.
Fleischman
Yeah.
Memorial Project. Yeah. So, this is all going into, this is actually, these are nested. So we've got a 4-inch sphere on the outside, and then there's 2 3-inch spheres inside that, and then there's 2 2-inch spheres inside those. So our input stream in here is going into the 2 center spheres, and then this is attached to the exhaust of the engine, and the exhaust is being counteropposed on the outside sphere. So the 2 streams don't actually touch. You've got your exhaust stream going counterclockwise around your outside sphere, that goes down here and out your exhaust, and then you've got your input stream coming in the bottom, spinning clockwise, and it's on the inside. So they're not actually touching, but again, this is an electromagnetic phenomena, so plasmoids can go straight through the metal. It's not that the 2 streams are touching or there's some kind of impact happening. You've actually just got, just like a natural thunderstorm, 2 opposing vortexes going straight through each other, essentially. Yes, go on.
So the carburetor provides a fuel air mixture,
Yeah.
right? And this provides something else.
Yeah, so all right, let me explain that part. Are we clear on the ports just first? So our exhaust is essentially just going through,
outside,
flying out, yeah, and our input's going on the inside one going in, and then we'll go through this part. This is the exhaust port right there, so it goes right onto the exhaust. Exhaust comes out, and that counter opposes the input stream that we're creating here. Yeah,
Exhaust comes out there.
yeah, and that's the final exhaust output that replaces this one.
That we're going for
What's that? Sorry.
We're going for muffler.
We've taken the muffler off for the test, but ultimately, you know, once it's properly engineered and put in something, yeah, you put the muffler back on, yeah. So then this part, so our cold stream's coming up here to finish kind of explaining that process.
Very cheap.
We've got our cold clockwise stream coming up here, exiting through here and being vacuumed into this spacer down next to the carburetor, down in between the carburetor and the air intake. The carburetor we usually run with about 95% off because we don't want a ton of air coming in there because we've got air coming in here now. So there's a little bit of tuning. Essentially our 3 things to be able to tune the thing are adjusting the governor and then the carburetor to get a good balance between a very small amount of air coming in here and most of our vacuum and air being pulled straight through the machine.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to Alchemical Science and catch the follow-up trial videos tomorrow morning. See you next time.